So we're back for another Temu testing time. This is where I try budget brands from Temu to see what kind of results we get. So today we are going to be testing out a mould that's come from Temu. All these was in my last haul. I will put a link for that up at the top in case you want to go and see what was actually in that haul. We'll be testing out the Epoxy pigment paste. So we've got the white, which I already have, so I'm actually going to use an older bottle, but it's from the same place. So we've got the white, the black, the green, the blue, red and yellow. We're going to be testing out the pigment inks, which in my last haul, I'll put a link at the top, I got a massive bag of them, and these was something like £5 per bottle on Amazon. So yeah, I've got a really big bag of them, and I'm just going to choose a few of them from that bag so we can just like bring it down to a few rather than being there all day and testing inks. So yeah, we're going to have a couple of different ones, so I'm going to select, I'm going to go for a red, pink, a blue, a violet and a white. I think that's what I ended up going for. Also, during the Temu unboxing, I unboxed this one and I thought it was a black, but it says multicolour at the bottom, so we're going to give that a try as well. We're also going to be experimenting with some epoxy resin that I got from Temu as well. So this is a 2-part epoxy. So I've got myself a clear measuring cup, and I've also got my mixer there in the background. That was another Temu find. I did one of these testing videos a while back which included this resin mixer. I'll link that one above in case you want to go and check that one out. Again, I was just testing some Temu products that I'd got just to see the quality and whether they actually worked. Now, as you can see there, I did have good intentions of putting a small amount of each pigment paste onto a little cocktail stick, and then we could sort of have the same amount in the cups. But by the time I'd finished mixing the resin and I was ready to pour, the little cocktail stick had actually soaked up the pigment paste. So I decided to go in after I've poured the resin onto this and figuring out this mistake to actually just put some in the actual resin. So this is what I'm doing here. So all the small cups have got a little bit of resin in there now. I'm just putting a little bit of the pigment paste in, a couple of drops at a time, just to see what colour it comes out at. And if I'm not happy with the actual colour, I want it a bit more concentrated, and putting a little bit more in. You don't want to be putting too much in because obviously then it won't cure. So I am conscious about this. I do want to make sure that I'm not putting too much in. The only colour that I had a problem with was really the black. I've used the white one before, no problems, but the black just didn't seem to go as opaque as I liked. Same with the multicoloured one, which ends up turning out black in the end anyway. So I'm going to give these all a good mix. I'll speed through this process so you don't have to sit there watching, but just to give you an idea of how much I'm putting in each one. So I've got myself 4 of these little cups and I'm just putting the resin in there. And to each of the cups I'm adding the pigment inks. I'm adding 4 drops of each of these pigments. After giving the bottles a really good shake, a lot of this pigment did sort of stick to the bottom of the bottle, so they really needed a good shake beforehand. So once I've got 4 drops in each of those, which seemed to take my hands forever to do, I start mixing them up, and the colour of these are absolutely beautiful. And both the pigment paste and the pigment inks mix beautifully into the resin. There's no extra bubbles or lumps or clumps or dry bits. Everything works out absolutely lovely. Right, so let's get pouring. So we're starting off with the green pigment paste, the blue pigment paste, the yellow pigment paste. And as you can see from these, some of them do look translucent, but whilst they're actually in the mould or in the cup, they don't look too bad. There's the white pigment paste. This one's the black pigment paste. The red pigment paste, it's a really deep, like cherry red. It's beautiful. Bit of overpour. Now this is the multicoloured paste, and to me it looks black. Add a bit more of that one, so fill some more up. Don't like any of this going to waste. Now we're moving on to the pigment inks. This is the blue. You can see obviously these are a lot more translucent than the pastes. Sorry I'm slightly off camera there with the blue, and I will be with the violet as well. This is the red pigment ink, the pink. Notice how sort of bright this one still looks. It changes once it's actually cured. Yep, getting them lost dregs out. We're on to the violet. Unfortunately I was slightly off camera when I poured these, but I'm just topping them up there. This is the violet and it looks absolutely beautiful. So we're mixing the yellow and the blue pigment paste together here. I was hoping to sort of get like a greeny, earthy kind of look with the blues and yellows. So trying to pour them at the same time, but it wasn't doing the best, so we just tipped in a bit more of the blue. And then give it a little swirl. And I wasn't going for any particular techniques with these, I was just basically looking at the actual piece, looking at where I wanted the colours going and just swirling it until I felt satisfied of where it is. I'm in my element here, I'm just having a bit of fun and just playing about with colours and figuring out how things are. Now we're on to the white and the really deep cherry red. You can see the difference between the red that I'm pouring, which is the pigment paste, and the red to the right of it, which is the pigment ink. How different of a deep red colour that is. And I don't know what exactly I was going for here. I sort of wanted like a red and white marble, I think was the idea at first, and then it just turned into something totally different. It started reminding me more of like jelly and ice cream. So yeah, I didn't want to swirl it around too much. But I do go in there with a stick and I move it around, and I want to sort of mix both of them into each other, but sort of keeping them separate at the same time. With all the pigment paste and the pigment inks already in their cavities, I turned to just playing about, and you can see there mixing the white and the black together, which are the pigment pastes, and then over to the other side I've got the yellow, the blue and the green pigment paste mixing together, and to the right I'm mixing the blue and the pink and the red all together in the pot from the pigment inks. I decided then I want a bit of the yellow in with the red, so I've just tipped that in ready for the dirty pour, and I'm taking the yellow, the blue and the green pigment pastes and swirling it together in this little heart cavity. Just wanting to have a play and just see how these things mix together and how they look like once they've actually been cured. So the idea for me for the black and white is I wanted to try a sort of marbling effect. So I go in whilst it's in the pot and give it a little mix, but I don't want it sort of mixed into a grey, so just a basic mix, and then I'm tipping this into the cavity but sort of swirling it around at the same time. I don't really want it all to sort of be a blob from the middle and sort of going outwards, so I want it all sort of incorporated into different streaks of the black and white. And then I didn't have enough of the black and white mixture, so I'm just going in there with a little bit of the clear resin just to top that up, and then I will go in with a cocktail stick and I'll give that a bit of a move around. Again, I don't want it mixing into a grey, I just want the black and white streaks in there. Then we're going in with the purple, the pink and the red, all into one cavity. These are the pigment inks, and then what we mix with the red and the yellow pigment paste, we're putting that together in this cavity. Next I wanted to have a play with some clear, because obviously I've got quite a lot of clear resin left and I want to see how these inks and things work in the actual cavities. So I've been watching other YouTubers for a while doing resin and doing different effects, and I haven't got the details to hand. I'm going off memory from what I remember other people doing, and I thought, well, I'll just have a play with it, see what I can do. I don't think I've ever watched anybody do any pours with the pigment inks, so I wanted to have a play about with them and see what kind of effects they do and what kind of things I could try with them. I did have in mind that I've seen a couple of people do the Petri effect, and I've never tried this myself, so I thought, why not give it a go from memory with the wrong type of colourant. So I'm trying it obviously here with pigment inks, whereas other people I've seen use alcohol inks, so we'll see how they work out. I'm just going to top up the remaining colours that I've got there with the rest of the clear mix, just so we can make the colour go a little bit further. And then I'm just going to top that one up that was a bit shallow earlier on. Same colours, just added a bit of clear resin to it. So I'm going to give them all a pop. I noticed a couple of bubbles coming to the surface, so whilst the clear resin was in the other cavities waiting for me to add the inks, I just went over the back of each one of these with the long net lighter just to remove any bubbles that had sort of come to the surface so they don't pop at a later time on their own. So let's have a play about with these inks and these clear cabochons. So I didn't have a sort of an idea, I just sort of wanted to go in there with different colours have a play about and see what I can do with them. So we're going in there with the Pigment Ink Red. This, believe it or not, is the pink. It looks kind of neon in the bottle. Then I'm going to go in with the blue. Couple in that one, couple in the other one, a couple. I was literally just putting them sort of symmetrical as I can do, but I just had an idea that I wanted to be able to run a cocktail stick through the colours to be able to create some effects within, just to see what happens and how they react and what different they are with alcohol inks. Obviously didn't have enough red in that one for how I felt at the time, so I'm going in there with a little bit more red. Switching over to the pink again with the blues. A couple of drops in them ones. And the idea is to just have a play. I'm recording whilst I'm doing it, so I can always go back and look at what I liked about a certain piece and how it turned out. And I've got recorded in there of what I've actually done. So I'm going in there with the violet, a couple of drops in them ones, and now I want to start making swirly patterns. Again, I didn't have an idea in mind of how I wanted it to look. I was going with what I liked the look of at the time. I knew that I wanted a mixture, I wanted it to sort of be around and didn't really want any negative spaces. So I'm dragging the toothpick round, I'm going between each of the colours and then putting the colours where I want it to be for the final look. And then in between each of these pieces that I've done, I'm wiping off my stick off camera before I go into the next one. And I think the blues and the pinks in this look really nice together. We're on to the blue and the violet now. And with these last couple of pieces, I wanted to see what it was like with like a Sinker white. This is the white that come with the pigment inks, so it's not an actual Sinker white. I just sort of wanted to get that kind of effect. I wanted to see if I could achieve that Petri effect with pigment inks. I've never even tried this with alcohol inks, which is supposed to be the right way of doing it. So yeah, we'll see how this turns out and if we can make improvements on it in the future. And again, I wanted to do more of a swirl. I have seen people do this themselves in the past, and it looks really good how minimal of a stir that they do. But I just wasn't feeling that on this day. I really wanted it mixed in. I really wanted no negative space in there. I wanted to do my own little twist and see how it works. And the colours on the back never look how they do on the front anyway, so it doesn't matter what you sort of got at the back. It's not going to be the same on the front, and I accept that. That's not an issue. I just wanted to have a play about. So we've got the violet, the blue and the red in there. We're mixing all those up. Again, going for a little bit of a swirl, but again trying to not have any negative space. I really wanted the colour to sort of go through them. With these being translucent, I didn't want it to be where there was just a clump of some translucent colour and then a load of clear resin. I wanted it to be more of a mix. And in this one we had the pink, the red and the white, hoping that the white acts like a sinker. But again, instead of just doing a normal pattern like other people do, I just wanted to go in there and mix it all up and see what actually happens. So these are getting on the bit of a thicker side now, so I'm going to leave them off to cure and I'll be back with you soon. Okay, let's get this demoulded. Everything feels cured. It's been a couple of days since I poured these, so we should be good. So we'll start off with black. And I'm looking for a nice shiny finish, because we are testing this Temu mould out at the same time. We have a shiny finish, but there is a bit of cloudiness. Now I'm not sure if that's due to the pigment paste or the mould just yet, so we'll see as time goes on what these are, because on the back side of it, where it's not touched the mould, it's quite shiny apart from where them bubbles have burst at the back. Same with that one. And this is another black one. This is a bit bigger. The colour looks like it's sat throughout, which is really good. But I'm not overly impressed. It's got a sort of a cloudiness to it. I'm really not sure if you can see what I'm talking about on there, because it is, to the eye or to the camera that I'm looking at, okay, but there's certain areas that just look a bit matte rather than gloss. I'm not sure if that's due to the mould or the pigment base. So if you remember, we did pour the black, which is these, and we also poured the multicoloured. It says multicoloured on there, but it works out multicoloured is actually black. So yeah, if you're wondering what the multicoloured is when you look on Temu, it's not, it's just black, because these have come out exactly the same colour. So at least I've got 2 blacks and 2 whites now. Let's try with the red. Again, that's got a bit of a matte, it's not all the way around, it's only in certain areas. So I'm not really sure what's happening there. But that colour is really rich, really deep red. Right, next we have this green, which is this one over here. And again, we've got, it's not glossy, we've got matte areas in there. There's definitely matte areas. So it's not glossy and shiny. Colour's okay, colour's nice. Then we have the yellow, which is this one. And I like this, it's a really nice shiny sunny yellow. Is there any matting? There's a tiny little bit there where it's not glossy. So I think it's down to the mould. We'll figure it out as we go along, because obviously if the other ones where it wasn't the pigment paste used in there has also got that matte kind of look, then obviously we know it's something to do with the mould itself. Right, what's next? That's the yellow. The blue was this one. So this is the blue pigment paste. Yep, we've got that matte look, or lack of gloss I should say, the lack of gloss on there. I really don't know if you can see it, but it's like a definite loss of gloss on this bit here. Next we had the white. White is white, but it is a really good white, it's a really strong white. We definitely got some lack of gloss on there. So next we're going to have a look at inks. If you remember, we chose the blue, the pink, violet, red and the white, but I think we used that for effect rather than actual pouring of the colour. So the red is this one. That's the red, a nice shiny sort of, so it reminds me of like Jelly Baby red. That's all I can explain it as. It's not like a pillar box red, it's not like really deep or anything. It is red. It's not transparent, it's not translucent, which is good. I was expecting these inks to be quite translucent, but with the red in particular we don't seem to have that issue. So that's the red. Next we're going to go for the blue. That was this one. It's a really nice blue. Now that is translucent. Yeah, there is some lack of gloss on that one as well. You do get quite a lot of bubbles in this one by the looks of it. Again, that could be the resin, because it was budget resin from Temu that I used. So there's the blue. So this is the pink, which has turned out very, very light in colour. Let's pop that one out. So it's very translucent, very, very pale. Well, if you remember when we poured it, it's looks like quite a neon colour, but yeah, it's not really done a very pinky colour. And again, we've got quite a lot of bubbles in there. Actually, that's not bubbles, that's sort of, I think that's actually to do with the ink, the way the ink has actually settled in there. They're not bubbles. It sort of looks like bubbles, but it's not, it's bigger. So it's a very nice pink, but it's too light for my liking. It's definitely a very pale pink. And you do get that kind of inclusion kind of look. It's not bubbles, it's just the way the ink has worked inside that resin. So that's the pink. And then the violet, which I thought was the pink because it was being quite dark, is these two. It's a good job I can go back and check on what I've done. So again, very translucent. I never checked on that last one whether there's any matting on it, like lack of gloss. There is, but not as bad. So there's a little bit there and a little bit there. I'm feeling like it's the mould, but I'll keep you up to date with that because I am going to do a comparison between the Temu mould and the Amazon mould that I got. So if you want to see the difference, I'll use exactly the same resin so that we can get a definite idea of whether it is the mould that's an issue or whether it's something else in this test. So it's very pretty colour, but very translucent. So this one was the blue and the yellow mixed together, and then we tipped it together to form this, and then we give it a little bit of a swirl. So let's see how that one's turned out. Not mad keen, to be honest. And the shine, yeah, there's an area there where it's matte. I'm really disappointed that this mould is naff. We're not going to get a good result with anything because it's going to have these problems. I mean, obviously you can sand it and try and bring it up and make it nice and neat, maybe do a top coat or whatever, but when you're doing these moulds you expect it to look nice straight away. That's what you pay for. So far I wouldn't suggest the Temu mould, but I do want to test it against the one that I know works, which is the one I bought from Amazon, and I'll put a link for both of those in the description. So I was sort of going to try and go for like a natural, like earthy look for this, but I've definitely not achieved it. That blue took over and I didn't get them mixed in. You always get a different idea of what you want from the back, and it always looks completely different on the front, or it has done for me up to now. So that was the blue and the yellow mixed together of the pastes. Then we mixed the white and the black together to get this one. Trying to go for a kind of marbling look. Oh, and we got it! That's a better thought than what I thought was going to happen. We actually got a marbling effect. And we don't seem to have any loss of gloss on that one. Just double checking it. No, that one looks fine. Looks absolutely perfect. There's no lack of gloss on that one. And we've definitely got that marbled look. Quite pleased with that one. Right, on to the next. There was one that was a mixture of the red and white, which was this one. So the red and white paste, we mixed that together. That's a very interesting kind of colour. It does look like strawberry jam or jello mixed with cream. And have we got any matting or lack of gloss on that one? Yeah, there's a bit of lack of gloss there on that side. And then the rest were basically us trying new things. So, you know, nip back and have a look at which ones we was actually pouring. I know this one we basically poured the yellow, the green and the blue into one, did a dirty pour and then give it a bit of a swirl. That's give a really nice interesting effect on that one. So you've definitely got the greens, a bit of the blue and the yellow in there. What should we go for next? Let's go for this one. I'm not sure what these were. Oh, they must have been the inks because they are translucent. So I've got a mixture. I think that was pink and red mixture. Going off the top of my head. And then a bit of pink and orange in there. So there must have been a bit of this one that we mixed up with the red and yellow. Obviously we tried to make an orange here. Oh, actually I like that. I like how that red's come through the yellow and it's turned it sort of like an amber. But again, we do have a little bit, just one little bit there of where it's not picked up the gloss. I'm just wondering if we can just buff that up a bit with a bit of polish. Shouldn't have to. I'm not sure how these ones are going to work because there is a little bit of sort of bubbling on the top, but we'll have a look at what they look like. Don't like that one. I think we tried to put some white in there and let it drop through. It's a bit heavy. So yeah, that one's definitely not worked. We've pulled the colours, we've pulled the colours through, so that side of things work. We have got that kind of Petri effect at the side, you can sort of see it, but just a bit too harsh on how quick it sank. But we've got an idea of how it could work there, and I like that we've got hints of blue shining in there, like a really pale blue shining through as well. Let's have a look at this one. Again, it looks like we've used white on there, and we've definitely got that kind of Petri effect, but it's lobbed towards the front, and unfortunately there is a big area here where it's not picked up a shine. You know, it's not matte, it's not like I'm completely mattified. There is a bit of gloss there, but compared to, you know, this area is definitely more shiner. It's definitely more shiner. I quite like that effect. I just need to control the blobbing towards the front. That's the first time I've ever tried that type of effect, so I can definitely do better as we go. Now I like that. I can't remember exactly what we did. I'm going to have to rewind and have a look at what we did. In fact, give me 1 sec and I'll have a quick look. So we dropped colours on the back of these two, then we dropped the white on the top of those, and then we swirled it in, and that's what effect we've got from there. Like I said, I think it's a little bit heavy-handed on these bits at the top, and we've got a couple of blobs there, but that gives me time to perfect that. I'd probably go for different colours if I was to choose to do it, which I do plan on doing. These ones was basically the resin with the inks. This one's obviously got blues and purples and reds. We've got a bit of blue at the bottom, so a bit of purple at the bottom, a bit some of the red and blue to go through, and then we just give that a mix with the cocktail stick, and that's the result we've got from that. I think that'll actually look really nice with a dark backing. Just a bit of scrap paper. No, I'm completely wrong. Maybe a holographic backing might look better. Make them stand out a bit more, because I think that took away the purple. So yeah, maybe a holographic backing would look really good on that. But that's for another video, or maybe gold or something along those lines. That's them three. This one, again, like I said, we put the colours on and swirled them in. I think that gives it a really nice effect. I might use that effect again in the future, because you don't seem to get that with alcohol inks. You don't get it where you've moved these around, and alcohol inks tend to drop and then disperse. This definitely stays in lines a lot easier than alcohol inks. So definitely something to play about with there. And again with these, we mix these with the inks. And we've got a completely different effect there. We must have had more colour in that one. I think these were sort of dirty pours towards the end where we just mixed it all in and threw it in. Anyway, last one. Let's see how it goes. That's pretty. I think with a bit more blue in that, that'd look really, really nice. Again, it's a shame about the mould. There it is definitely not gloss all the way over it. I am leaning more towards it being an issue with the mould rather than the resin. I won't be 100% certain until I do that other test where I compare this one against the Amazon one, which I know is fine, there's no issues with at all. So obviously stay tuned for that one and make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification bell just in case YouTube doesn't decide to show you what I've done. Well, let's get the mould out of the way and we'll put all these up and let you have a look at them all next to each other. I definitely think that one should go that way up. So there are all the ones with the effects. I'm doing my best to grab all the rest of them because I've just put them at the side. And this is one of the reasons why I like playing about with cheap products rather than expensive ones. So if I spent forever trying to perfect this with expensive resin, it's going to cost me a lot of money. So if I play about with it and see what effects I can get and what I like, what I don't like, I can, you know, go away and think, you know what, I like it how this one worked, or I liked how that one worked, I like that colour with that colour, and you come up with different things that you can do. Trying to get into some kind of order. Now, with epoxy resin, I did explain this in one of my previous videos, the smaller the mould, so say for example something like this, which is quite thin and small, actually takes longer to cure than something this kind of size. It's to do with the chemical reaction that the epoxy does. So even though these have been curing for 2 days, I wouldn't sort of say something like this is completely cured throughout. It will take probably up to a week for something so small to sort of cure all the way through. So just bear that in mind in case you end up doing something you think it's gone soft and it's not, you know, it's not worked, because the smaller the project, the longer it takes to cure. But yeah, some really good, and I say interesting ideas of what I can do for future projects. I really like that this one's marbled. I think that one turned out better than what I thought it would be, and we've got the shine all the way through on that. I'm really liking these colours. I think I might actually back that with some kind of pink, but lighter than the pink that's in there, because I like how it looks on the back with this matte. I think this matte actually makes it stand out really well. So I think if I could back that with a baby pink, that would be really good. And I really do like this one. It's just a shame about that blobbing. I do like how that one's had that kind of effect where it's coming up and around and it's sort of suspended in the middle. So I'm definitely going to be working on that and the way it looks, but I think by far the one that stands out the most to me is this one, which wasn't anything special. It's just something that I seem to like the look of. And I think we should be able to polish that up a bit better and stop dropping it. Polish it up a bit better and put some kind of backing on. I'm just not sure what yet. It might be a silver, maybe a gold. I'm not really a gold person, but maybe. We'll see. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!